We've seen the media giant Media24 was one of the casualties of the coronavirus pandemic, as the hub announced plans to shut down 5 magazines, 2 newspapers, and also reduce the frequency of its remaining monthly magazines. The iconic Drum magazine will only now be available in digital format. Media24 says that the pandemic has accelerated the pre-existing structural decline in print media, resulting in a devastating impact on its already fragile print media operations. Well, Media Monitoring Africa's head of programs, Thandi Smith, now joins us for the discussion. Thandi, a very good morning. Thank you very much for joining us. I mean, let's just look at the impact of the media industry. I mean, how COVID-19 ultimately has impacted the entire industry. This week alone, as I mentioned, News24 announcing that they're going to be closing down 5 of the publications. I mean, this ultimately amounts to about 500 job losses. Looking at the business models that are currently in place, how are they going to have to relook at the business models and scenarios going forward to mitigate against some of the challenges that COVID-19 has posed?
Well, you know, as you said, or as it was stated earlier, you know, COVID-19 has clearly just brought out the pre-existing challenges and issues that the industry was facing. And I think this is a reality for every business are trying to operate under these conditions. And I think that speaks to the nature of a crisis. You know, it exposes the conditions and challenges and struggles that have always existed, and we know this about the media industry as well. It's a devastating reality that we have come to see with many other media organizations having to retrench and shut down publications, and it's a really sad day for media diversity in the country. And you know, it's during a crisis like this that highlights just how important media, journalists, and access to information really is. So it really is tragic. But I think, you know, you can't say that we're surprised about it. I think that we've seen the challenges that print media have been facing in light of the digital environment for many years now.
Thandi, I just want to perhaps also look at the relationships that exist between the advertisers and also those, of course, are going to be spending within these publications during COVID-19. What does that relationship currently look like? How has that also been redefined during these unprecedented times?
Well, I think that, you know, if you look at the kind of information coming out and how people and society have had to sort of adapt their lifestyle to the pandemic and to this crisis, I think that, you know, advertising will also take a hit. You know, your traditional advertisers can't really advertise. You know, some of the classic lifestyle options that we are prone to, especially in the target market of these publications. But, you know, having said that, I think the bigger issue that needs to be unpacked or discussed is the nature of advertising moving from print to digital. And the fact that, you know, the advertising on digital, we know already there are massive challenges there. And that speaks to, you know, the programmatic advertising placed by Google and the big international platforms. It's no longer, you know, necessarily in the hands of local advertisers, and I think that becomes even bigger, an even bigger challenge, because that's going to be something that exists far after, you know, we've managed to work through this crisis.
Looking at how the value of media during COVID-19. I mean, yes, as you stipulated, some of the factors, including job losses and salary cuts, and even the cancellation of events, that has directly impacted media houses and publications. But we're also seeing that the media's obviously been responsible for the dissemination of information, providing some entertainment and relief during the isolation and lockdown periods as well. So as we move forward, as we re-look at how we measure the value of media, how is that going to be factored in, you know, chartering the way forward?
Yeah, well, you know, we as MMA have always advocated for the importance of the role of media in a democracy, and just the role of access to information, well, the importance of access to quality information. And I think that, as much as media can make mistakes and do make mistakes, I think that they have performed incredibly during this crisis, given the conditions and given the circumstances. And, I think that we are starting to see, or at least, the broader public are starting to see just how important it is to be able to access factual, quality, accurate information. And I really do believe that many of our media players are providing just that. It's journalists who put themselves on the front line. It's journalists who, access those or put their own lives at risk to bring the public that information. And I think that, a crisis again points out or just highlights just how important the media industry is. There's a reason that right in the beginning, when we went into our initial lockdown, there's a reason that journalists in the media industry were considered an essential service in level 5. And I think that just speaks to the importance of journalists and information.
We embrace the fourth industrial revolution and look at the digital migration that, as you mentioned earlier, of course, is also transpiring the world over. What is going to be the role of technology and innovation to ensure that media at large comes back bigger, badder, bolder, and even stronger, chartering the new normal in the way forward?
Well, I mean, to be completely honest, digital media and online media, there's going to be no point to trying to have those publications on this platform if you don't have an audience, and if your audience doesn't have adequate access and quality access to the information and to these platforms, you're going to have an entire a massive percentage of the population at not being able to access. So I think, before we speak about innovation, or I suppose it all goes hand in hand, innovation and adapting to digital also means making sure that your publications and your platforms are accessible to every corner of the country, and that highlights or brings in the discussion about data costs and data pricing and universal access to the internet. And unless we really step up our game around trying to improve that for every member or every member of the public, you're just going to start having, the challenge of media diversity and access to information is simply just going to get harder and harder. And, it's exactly, yes.
Do you think that there is room for the publication industry perhaps to, still be relevant in this day and age? How relevant is it going to be going forward? I mean, as there's rescaling and resizing of the industry at large, I mean, what data is emerging on that front?
Well, as much as I'm assuming you did mean the print publication. I'm sorry, I didn't get that properly, but yes. Print publications, I think that there still is a market for print, but I think that market is changing, and I think that is a reality that people have picked up. I still think although the numbers have dropped, especially in a country like South Africa where access to digital and the internet is a problem, especially at this point, there is still a need for print media. And so I don't think that you can say that the entire print industry is completely dead, but I think it is changing. I think that, models and business models need to be rethought across the board, from print to digital to broadcasting. But I don't think we are seeing the complete death of print just yet. But, unless we really target the challenges that need to be solved, we might just get there very soon.
Thandi Smith, let's leave the conversation there. Of course, head of programs at Media Monitoring Africa, just chatting to us about the media industry. It seems is forced to build a new plane whilst chartering the old one. Obviously, just unpacking the impact of COVID-19 on the media industry at large, as well as long-standing emergence of that inevitable digital migration.